Thank you so much, Carolyn. Great to see you all. Welcome to Denver. For those of you that aren't from Denver, we're delighted to have you here. For those that are, welcome home. I just want to say a couple of things about why we're so excited that this conference is here and so excited about the work that you're doing here. As Carol knows, I spent my career as a teacher and a high school principal before I got into this work. And so I'm particularly devoted to the cause that brings you all here, which is how do we make sure every young person in Denver and around the country has access to all the opportunity and education they need to be able to live out their dreams. And I think that is a big part of this organization's focus. And so we're proud that this was born in Denver. We're proud that it stayed in Denver. As we've become now one of the top convention cities in the country, we're always proud of our homegrown efforts that have been built here and stay here. So thank you so much to GlobalMindED for staying here in your hometown. I'll just say I think there is a moment right now where people start to wonder, does democracy work? Is it possible that we're still able to solve hard problems together? And I think one of those is, can we make sure people have access to opportunity? For us in Denver, one of the things we're trying to do is both provide great services to our city and to our young people, but also to have one little shining light on the Rocky Mountains to show that it's still possible that democracy works, that you can actually get people together that disagree and you can solve hard problems. We've been working hard, like many cities, on some of those things you see appearing all around the country. What do we do on public safety? What do we do on homelessness? What do we do on revitalizing downtown? And I think part of what I hope you'll see while you're here these few days or while you're in these conversations is that dramatic outcomes are still possible in government. We're very proud of the fact that now over the last, thank you. we believe that. And hopefully you'll experience some of that as you're walking the streets outside of this building, because you are living in a city where 3 years ago, we had 1,000 tents in the middle of our downtown, and there were folks living outdoors and dying on the streets in the wintertime. We have now, 3 years in, dropped our street homelessness in Denver by 64% over 3 years. I will say to those of you not from Denver, that's not just the largest drop in Denver's history, that's the largest drop for any city in American history in a 3-year timeline. More importantly, it means we brought 9,000 people off the streets. We've gotten them into housing, into work, backing up and on their feet. At the same time, we've worked very hard at making this city safer. It means we've now, over the last year, dropped our homicide rate by 57%. We've dropped auto theft by 55%. And we are making a huge investment into downtown to bring moments of joy like the Sundance Film Festival that will come to Colorado, like all the great concerts you can see at Red Rocks or sports venues you can see down here. We think you can create moments of joy and also solve those core challenges the city faces. But on the top of that list is, how can you make sure young people have access to opportunity? And there are 3 big things we're working on in the city that all align deeply to what GlobalMindED is doing, which is why I was so delighted to be here. Our big focus is, 1, how do we make sure every kid gets an early start and a fair start, which is why we're really focused on high quality early childhood education from birth to 5. Thank you so much to Secretary Roy, who's here, who's been working on this. Lisa, great to see you. We are very focused on making sure that young people through elementary and middle school have equitable access to all of the learning that happens outside of 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. We know sometimes about 75% of the learning that happens after school, weekends, summertime. So we partner with Denver Public Schools to help make sure all kids can access the after-school programming they want, whether that's a science camp, whether it's a debate team, whether it's a competitive basketball team. We think those are what help drive us and form us as young people. We want to make sure all of our folks have access equitably to those experiences. And third and finally, which is where I know you all spend so much time, we want every high school student in Denver to have the opportunity to learn from the experience of work as a high school student. And so our job is for every high school student to get to work through high school. And so we have a summer jobs program, a mayor's summer jobs program we've launched. If you are a young person in Denver and looking for a summer job, we'll have about 5,000 young people we will get hired and into those experiences over the course of this summer as a way to say it not just helps you make a little money, but it helps you think about careers you might want to enter or not enter. But it also helps you learn the core leadership skills of how do I work with others, how do I meet deadlines, how do I solve crises and problems. Those are the things you will do over the course of your life at every stage. And so we think closing that gap from opportunity to employment is a huge part of what GlobalMindED does and what we are trying hard to be a model of what's possible here in Denver. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for the work you're doing. And thank you for continuing to believe that good people can come together and solve hard problems, because what you find is when you do that, you see instead of people turning on each other, they turn to each other. And that is actually what we want most out of democracy, is a place where folks still feel like they can turn to each other. Thank you so much for being here.
Let's give Mayor Johnston one more round of applause because he is one of the biggest rising stars of the people who will be continuing to lead our nation and be exemplary around the world. So we now have a panel called Learning, Earning, and Educating to Realize the American Dream. And as we've said the last couple of days, the theme of this event is Dimensions of Our Democracy, the voice that each of you have, the choices that each of you are making, and the commitments every day that you are choosing to really be able to have impact with things that you care about, whether that's climate, whether that's education, homelessness, whatever the issue is, that we can be a forum for those things to take root for you. So I want to get our panelists to come on up here, and Larry Wright. Let's give these guys a round of applause, and let's have Antoinette share her TED-style talk first. And then we'll just go down the line and maybe have some questions following.
Thank you. And I'm going to stand a little back issues, a little overtiredness. So first, thank you. When I was just a little girl, I asked my mother, what will I be? Will I be pretty? Will I be rich? Here's what she said to me. Do I have your attention now? Sarah? Okay, not everyone knows the song. Be will be, the future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera. My mother, there you go. Thank you, Peggy. Thank you. My mother said, get your nose out of that book. There's work to be done. But so I'm Antoinette. I lead Terumo Blood and Cell Technologies. We're based here in Lakewood, just down the road. I've got a couple of my folks over here, and check out our website because we have a lot of internships, and we are very committed to things like getting stem cell transplants to people who need them, getting blood where it is needed so people don't die from accidents or in childbirth. And we collect the fragile cells that are powering the next generation of cures for rare diseases such as sickle cell, for cancers. And I am not a medical person. I'm not smart enough to cure cancer, but I'm smart enough to connect the people who can. So in my role, I just came from Washington. We lead industry panels. We help advise governments in 160 countries on how to deploy their healthcare funding. It's complicated. There's always more that we need. But my journey to these lofty goals started in Michigan. Do we have any Michiganders here? Okay, there we go. One still smitten with the mitten. For those who don't know, Michigan's shaped like a mitten. I grew up at the tip of the Pinky Peninsula. Yep, okay, there we go. We got a Detroiter. I know that from her hand, right? But I was raised in an immigrant farming community, around 400 people. Now in my role, I'm in Tokyo regularly. That's the size of the bus stop I'm hanging out at, right? But in that environment, you learn a few things. First, be proud of the role you play. I wanted to bale hay because the guys who baled hay made more money than I did babysitting. But truth be told, I couldn't lift the bale. I couldn't reach the pedals on the tractor. I was pretty useless baling hay, but I was really good with the kids. And that division of labor, we all need to have a role that we play and be proud of that role. If something's broke, fix it. Don't wait. Don't wait for somebody or blame somebody. And if someone needs help, offer a hand. You have no idea how powerful a random act of kindness is. And when I was in high school, I cleaned houses, and scrubbing toilets was never a career aspiration. But a couple had encouraged me. I was good in school and top of my class to apply to the University of Michigan. I said, yeah, I'll apply. I got in. I was getting recruited because I did well on all the tests. And they came up and said, how's it going? I said, oh, I'm probably not going to go because for my grants, for work study, for the things I needed to get that money, I had to have a local bank account. To have a local bank account, you needed $200 sitting in the bank. And I could not imagine having $200 sitting in the bank. So as I shared this story, Dick Baker, whose house I was cleaning, opened his wallet and gave me $200 and said, go to school, right? Think about that. I'm 16 years old. I couldn't have even imagined it. And I will tell you, you're here because you're smart. Smarts matter. Hard work matters. But know that talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. There's smart people everywhere. That is not a function of where you're born. But what is opportunity? It is a very tricky thing. It may present itself as a complicated project you're asked to lead. It may present itself as a crisis in your family where you have to take care of someone who's sick, or a personal challenge that rocks your foundation. Fresh out of the University of Michigan, again, the hand, if you remember anything, it's the hand here. I was in my 20s and asked to run data centers for GE. I was an economics and English major. And by the way, that was pre-internet, so I did not become a millionaire there. I was asked to lead steel negotiations for the company. What did I know about steel and producing steel? And I was negotiating impaired contracts in places like Egypt and China and Kazakhstan, often with little background in the topic at hand and little experience, but I had the skills and humility to listen deeply and find common ground. That's the basis to solve most problems. But I trusted the people who appointed me to do those things, but I had to face my own fears. I was afraid to let them down. Fear is a powerful motivator, but it does not help you navigate the moment. You have to have a clear end in mind, because fear will not sustain you when things get tough, and you have to make a real-time decision. You have to have clarity of purpose and of your own values and what you intend to achieve. And that means you have to commit to be excellent. And that's a big word. What does that mean? But it means preparing more than anyone else. It means having the courage to make that decision, to act on your convictions, and to speak up. This builds respect from other people, and it builds momentum because people will come to you with bigger problems and bigger challenges, and they will ask for your perspective. And this is not a function of age. I was in my 20s. I was so worried that I didn't know that I would make the wrong decision. But I did my homework, I got prepared, and I did what I thought was right. When you are brought into bigger situations and complicated problems, the best training you can get is watching experienced people navigate. Learn from them. You just heard the mayor talk about that power of seeing things in action. Easy to read about something, but living it. And as you do that, steal the best and forget the rest. See the people you admire and what you like, and build your own style in your own persona. You'll hear people look for things, they'll use words like we need change agents and catalysts, and people have growth mindset and continuous improvement champions, all kinds of euphemisms for people desperately seeking people who take initiative and grab a problem and go. You have the ability to fill that demand, right? And if you think about what are people looking for, they want someone who will grab it and who will think about what is right for the people, the team, the processes, and those skills will help you in your community, in your profession. They will help you with your friend group, especially if anyone's had to pick dinner restaurants, right? But so as you do this, as you grow your experiences and you build your own convictions, I encourage you, keep challenging your own assumptions. Listen to different voices. Get data to help understand other opinions. Walk in other people's shoes. This is what builds empathy and understanding. And empathy is the most underrated leadership value that has the power to move mountains. Right? Yes, we can clap for that. We can clap loud for that. So whether it's motivated by fear or not, success becomes addictive. And when you're learning new things and leading through storms, and you're coming up with new ideas that get things done that people thought was impossible or highly unlikely, it stretches your own thinking and builds your own confidence and creates its own energy. And as you go through this, you will all face personal, professional, and private storms. That is human. There is not anyone here who has not experienced something that just stinks. We've all been there. But turbulence in a storm is normal. It does not mean the plane will crash. So how do you navigate that turbulence? Some people talk about balance, right? I'm not a good role model there, but I know how to navigate turbulence. You keep moving forward. You take one step, you trust your instincts, and you don't worry about whether it is the right step. You have to remember it's just the next step. It's not the last step in your journey, it's the next step. And if you're listening and if you're leveraging and open your heart and your mind to the people around you, there will always be people who help you along the way. And stepping up and speaking up is the foundation of our democracy. It is literally the only way in which you can shape the world that you want to live in. My mom used to say, I cannot smell what you're thinking. You've got to speak up. So I'll close with step with style, step with pride, tamp those fears down deep inside. Count your blessings, count your wins, show your true spirit, and that's when the fun begins. Hone your intellect with compassion, with grace. There is no better time or place for you to do you. So thank you and dream big.
Larry, do you want to be here or there? What's easier for you? Okay. Welcome.
Aho. Ponka Michelle Ashbaho, De Wanoche, Larry Wright Jr. Ijajik Dabli, Wishti Usni Ponka, Sichangu Lokotabli. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Larry Wright Jr. I'm a citizen of the Ponca tribe in Nebraska. I come from the Buffalo clan. My Ponca name is Buffalo Spirit. There's still a debate in my family. I don't think it's a debate, really. It's a joke. I'm either named after Buffalo Spirit because my head is as big as a buffalo, or I am as big as a buffalo. But I blame my dad. So, I'm also a descendant of the Sichangu Lakota, the Rosebud Sioux tribe in South Dakota. Thank you. I have the honor, I had the honor of being tribal chairman for my tribe for 11 years, served on our tribal council and different boards within the tribe for about 18 total. I currently am the executive director for the National Congress of American Indians. I also served as a representative for the Great Plains region on our executive committee when I was chairman for 5 years. So it is an honor to be here with you today. But before I get started, I'd like to say this, and no applause is needed. I'm not bragging, but not something to brag about. Next month, it will be a year since I quit smoking. I am not proud to say I smoked a lot for 35 years. And I tell you that story to tell you this story. I hate talking in front of people. I say that too, but I usually joke that I'm a recovering tribal chairman, but I'm also a recovering high school government teacher. So now you know why I smoked for so long. But I've never liked talking in front of people, and so you always take the advice where you can, and some of the advice, and many of you probably heard this, just imagine the audience in some way that brings you pleasure or makes it easier for you to move on. And so, as I told you about the smoking, as I look out to the audience, you all look like beautiful, delicious Camel menthol cigarettes. So that will help me get through this. So I met Carol a little over a year ago, and as many of you all know, when she asks you to do something, the answer is yes. When she said, "We want you to do this TED, are you okay doing a TED-style talk?" I'm like, "Sure." And then I didn't admit this before, but I had to Google what that was because I'd never seen one. So forgive me, this may not be exactly, and I should have went first because this is going to be hard to follow. So 7 years ago, almost 7 years ago, the National Congress of American Indians was formed in 1944 right here in Denver, Colorado. Yeah. So for those 82 years, this organization, and it was formed on the principles of defending tribal sovereignty in all of its forms and to protect our traditions, our culture, our land, and everything that involves. The only thing that's changed in those 82 years is the attacks on tribal sovereignty and the sophistication and the number of those attacks that we still fight for today. And so I do have the distinct honor of being the executive director for the organization. But truly where it starts, and I guess my story, is nothing amazing, just kind of happenstance in the right place at the right time, or wrong time, depending on how you look at it. But my family was raised by a single mother. I'm the oldest of 5. My father is where we get our blood from. And but the one thing that my mother did very well is making sure we knew who we were growing up, separated from that family. And it was my aunties and my uncles on my dad's side that really took us in and made sure we knew who we were. But with my tribe, the Ponca tribe, our tribe was forcibly removed from Nebraska in the late 1800s. And we were moved to Oklahoma. And one of the jokes is we were in Oklahoma, but some of our people moved back to Nebraska. And they said, "Why did you move back to Nebraska?" And the joke is, because we'd rather be Cornhuskers than Sooners. But the serious part of that story is one of our chiefs at that time, Chief Standing Bear, his only son, when they got to Oklahoma, got sick. And he knew he was dying. And before he died, he made his dad promise that he would bury him back in our homelands in Nebraska. And so Standing Bear, along with 30 others of our tribe, which included my family, illegally left Oklahoma to come back to our homelands and almost made it before they were stopped by the U.S. military. And a lawsuit ensued that said, you can't take us back. and it was a habeas corpus case. And at that time, the government was arguing that this had to be dismissed because Indians don't have standing in U.S. courts. Because up until that time, 1879, Indians weren't considered human beings in the eyes of U.S. law. In that court case, the judge actually opened a dictionary to look up what a human being was by definition, and that's how we won that court case. And we're allowed to go back to our homeland. Yeah. So I have to tell that story to kind of get to where I am and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I shared this earlier. You know, this country had 370 treaties were signed by this country with Indian nations from the eastern border to the west. And of those 370 treaties, over 90 million acres of land was taken from our tribal people. The prosperity, the growth of the United States is based on that. I stand before you on the eve of the America 250 Declaration of Independence as that merciless Indian savage before you today. That's listed in there. But that story, when our people were removed from Nebraska, the treaty that we had with the United States was broken, and of that, 96,000 acres of our land was taken. Today, through the work of our tribe, we have just under 3,000 acres of that land back that we had, all but 300 acres we had to buy. And so as we've moved forward in time, the federal government went through different policies, but from 1948 to 1964, and one of the reasons why NCAI was created was to protect that sovereignty, but the federal government had a policy to terminate, assimilate, and relocate Native people. And my tribe was one of the last tribes during that time period to be terminated. So in my time frame, in my birth, you know, it went from my father, who was Ponca, up until that time. And when the tribe was terminated, he was told he was no longer Indian. I was born in that termination period. Our tribe was federally recognized again in 1990, and my children were born in the late 90s, and so they were born as Ponca citizens. And fast forward, I joined the military when I was 17. My mom had to sign off because I was underage. I thought she'd have a little tear or two, a little hesitation. She couldn't sign that fast enough. So I knew where I was going. And so I was in the military for 6 years total. But I ended up finishing college. Went for a little bit, and me and the university had an agreement that I should no longer be at the school anymore. And so I had about a 10-year hiatus from college. But it was probably the best thing that happened for me. Experience, you talk about cleaning houses and not afraid to clean toilets. I had a friend that owned Mary Maids, and she asked me one day if I could help fix her vacuums and make sure that they were all ready to go, and I did that. So I was going to school, had a child, and needed some money. And then I turned into, hey, can you clean this business for me at night? And so I'm not afraid to clean toilets either. Finished my undergrad, and then ended up getting my teaching job in Lincoln, Nebraska. And then I got an invite from my dad of all people, so I knew something should have been up, because he was like, hey, I want you to come to, we're having a gathering. I want you to come over. I said, a gathering? He goes, yeah, all your aunties and uncles are going to be. I said, what is it, a reunion? Yeah, it's a reunion. And so, and he called me like 3 days in a row. Are you coming? I said, Dad, I'll be there. Turned out it was an intervention. And I get there, and I didn't know this because I wasn't involved politically at the time with my tribe. But it was election season, and the family said, you're running for council. I was like, Dad, I don't know the first damn thing about this. I said, I know the cultural aspect. I dance. I know the language, ceremonies. I don't do the politics. No, you're going to do it. Because I was one of the first in my family to actually graduate from college. And so I ended up running for council. And I said, well, I got to get all these signatures. I got to pay this funds. They said, it's already done. We just need you to sign on it. So that's how I got started in politics. And shortly after that, I got elected as vice chairman of my tribe. I was still teaching. Got elected chairman of my tribe. It was still teaching. Ended up fortunate enough to be in a position, our school district got some grant funds and created a program for its social studies teachers to get a master's degree in history. And so I didn't really want to do that, but it was free and everybody said, no, you're going to do this. And so I ended up getting a master's degree, and that's the first one in my family as well. But it was, being able to teach, and I went into teaching because I wanted to teach history. In my 7 years of teaching, never taught a history class. And I got, because I was in government, I taught ninth grade civics and advanced placement government and politics. And for me, there was nothing in our curriculum on Native issues, but like this room and why I agree to do things like this, and especially in the role that I have now, is everybody in here has an opportunity, especially our youth. When you say, no, I'll never do that. Believe me, I said that too, and here I am. But everybody in here may know somebody or may serve on a local city council, a county board, state legislature, or in the federal government, Congress. And the first time that you hear about Indian issues and problems for our people shouldn't be when you're in that seat making the decisions for us and about us. So voting is very important to me. The first time I voted was actually for a constitution for the tribe, and it's taken me on this journey. And so it's truly, I think I'm getting the hook. I didn't think I could last this long. So, but it truly is an honor to be here and be part of the conversation and the work that you all are doing. So thank you very much. Gatega Wibla Sheno.
Thank you so much, Larry. And now, Dr. Angie Paccione. Paccione. I've been saying it wrong for 7 years. I am glad you finally corrected me on that one, girl. It's about time.
No worries.
Okay.
No worries. All right. Whew. I was 18 years old, and I was already a high school All-American basketball player. I was already a member of the U.S. women's basketball team. I had already traveled to Taiwan to play basketball. I had everything going for me. I got it all together. And my last home high school basketball game, it was a game like they write movies about. I broke the New York State record for the most points scored in a game, got carried out of the gym on the shoulders of my teammates. I scored 62 points. Wait. Before the three-point line. So, boy or girl in high school in New York, and you know New York's got some basketball. Am I right? Come on now. All right now. So I was all that and a bag of chips. And I thought this was the best night of my career until I walked to the car and my stepdad was taking me home. And he looked like he was mad. And I was like, I made the mistake of asking him if he was mad. And when I did, he said, yeah, I'm mad. I was like, what are you mad about? He said, you could have scored 100. Are you kidding me? Do you remember a time in your life when you thought you did something good and somebody said it wasn't good enough? You remember what that felt like, right? That's how I felt. I could not believe that he was upset. Now, he wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong. I could have. But that was not my goal. It was the last home game for the seniors. And there were 3 other seniors on the team, and those girls had not ever scored in their 4 years of playing basketball. So I would steal the ball, run down court. Margie, come on. I would hand her the ball for a layup, and she would miss. I probably did that 3 or 4 times just for Margie, and probably 3 or 4 times for the other players that hadn't scored, because I wanted it to be their night to shine as well. I was already a shining star. And I'm also a very generous person, so I wanted them to have the limelight. I wanted their parents to be able to cheer them on when they finally scored one basket in all of their whole high school career. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Well, when my dad said that, first of all, it broke my heart because he didn't see me for what I was doing. I didn't have anything to prove. I already was going to be the first African-American female women's basketball scholarship at Stanford University. I went from the South Bronx to Stanford. If the University of Hawaii had a team, I may have gone there because I wanted to get as far away from him as I could. What I learned much later, is that he had a different calibration point for my performance. He was seeing me as a minus 38. I'll go this way, a minus 38 instead of a plus 62. It's the same place on the scale. But your perception of that performance depends on which angle you're looking at it from. What he was seeing me as is degrees of weakness. His calibration point was 100. And the only way I could live up to that was to score 100. So he was seeing me as a minus 38. The true calibration, that's a false calibration. The true calibration is from 0 to wherever you are. I was a plus 62, but that night, he made me feel like a minus 38. Raise your hand if you've ever been seen in degrees of weakness. Raise your hand if you've ever. Yeah. And so you know what it makes you feel. When you see yourself or others in degrees of weakness, it kills motivation. And growth and progress are highly unlikely. It kills motivation. We had 3 more games left in the season. They were all away games. I told you I was a high school All-American on the U.S. team, had a scholarship to Stanford, and I did not even want to play in those next 3 games. Now, some people will take that perception and grit their teeth and clench their fists and say, I'll show you, you whatever, you know. I don't cuss, but you know what I'm talking about. And they will carry that emotional baggage into those next performances, which cannot be good for you, first of all, and it can't be fulfilling to you. I was averaging 33 points. I had scored 45, 54, 54, 62. That was the highest I ever scored. No. But the reason I'm saying that is because I was already in degrees of strength. I was already building and developing. I was already getting better and better and better. And because of that perception of degrees of weakness, that was it. Now, I'm not saying you can't have standards. I'm not saying you don't want to bring out the best in people, because you do. But the perception that you have of that person changes the way that person responds. We're not up there anymore. You want to build capacity? You have to see people in degrees of strength, and you have to start with seeing yourself in degrees of strength, even a little strength. When you see people in degrees of weakness, it kills motivation, and growth and progress are not likely. But when you see people in degrees of strength, even a little strength, growth and progress is not just likely, it's certain. It's certain. So as you get out into the work world, you will probably have some situations where someone is going to see your performance and judge it. Your supervisor will be the judge, the evaluator, and they may not think you're doing as good as you think you're doing. Check their calibration point, check what you're feeling about that, and then shift the narrative for yourself and see yourself in degrees of strength. I was better than I was yesterday, and I'm going to get better tomorrow, and you will have to build that. The three things I want to leave you with as you enter, whether you're entering the next grade level, some of you are in K-12, you're in high school, some of you are not yet finished with college. As you enter your next step, begin to see yourself and others in degrees of strength. And 3 things. Bring your best to everything you do. Bring your best. Someone said this morning about you're already creating your narrative. You're already creating your resume, if you will. How you show up matters. The fact that you're here and not out in the sun for lunch matters. Yesterday or the day before, I talked about activating potential. How many heard that talk about activating potential? So one way to activate potential that I shared with you is the power of the spoken word. This is a second way, is how you change the calibration, how you see yourself and others. That's another way to activate potential. For those who weren't there, potential is stored greatness, and we all have it. Everyone in here, everyone you know, everyone you meet has stored greatness, and it's up to us to activate that stored greatness. And so, one way, power of the spoken word. Another way is the perception and the calibration point with which you see yourself. So bring your best to everything you do. Secondly, bring out the best in others. Pass the ball. Let somebody else shine. Bring out the best in others. And the third way is to collaborate or partner in such a way that you deliver the best for the organization. You will all be on teams when you go to work, right? You all know that. Every organization is organized by teams, functional, cross-functional, different kinds of teams. Partner and collaborate in such a way that you deliver the best for the organization, because then you become invaluable. Add value so you become invaluable. If you do those things, first, we will all succeed. We will build capacity, and that's the way we get things done. Thank you. And I want to take a selfie. There we go. And I have to take a selfie. So look alive. Look alive.
Look alive.
And let me take a selfie. Here we go. On 3. 1, 2, 3. I'll go this way. Bam. And then this way. Bam. Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you.
Do you prefer to be here or I'll be here? You'll be here. Okay. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
This is somebody who took a red-eye flight, got herself here, and that's another thing I'll say about a lot of these folks who succeed is they're willing to do what I call scrappy, and that means making anything happen to come to something like this for all these students. So let's give Melba one more round of applause, and she jumped in with her story.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, no. So I'm from Harlem, where there are over 100 churches, and we do something called call and response. So when I say good afternoon, everybody, you got to talk back to me. Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, y'all making me feel right at home. We're going to pass the offering plate in a few minutes. To my co-panelists, you guys were amazing. It's an honor and a pleasure, Dr. P., Larry, and Antoinette, to sit alongside you. Started from the bottom, now we're here. I was the girl that everybody said couldn't, wouldn't, and shouldn't. Why? Because I'm Black. Why? Because I'm a female. And why? Because I'm from what people consider to be the ghetto. Everything is about point of view. Yeah, I'm definitely Black. I'm loving that. Definitely female, loving that too. However, I'm not from the ghetto. I am from the Mecca of Black culture. The food and beverage industry is the second largest industry in this country. So growing up, as a young girl growing up in Harlem, we really couldn't afford to go to Disney. We would get in the car and drive 11 hours from Harlem to a very small town called Hemingway, South Carolina. My brother and sister, they looked forward to going down there so they can play with our cousins. For me, it was about being with my grandmother. That's where I learned the power of food. Everything in my house happened over food, whether it was the birth of a new baby, the celebration of an anniversary, or someone transitioning in life. food was always at the forefront of everything we did. It was also the place where storytelling happened. Although I never met great-grandma Mia, I knew so much about her because when we sat at the table for dinner, there were conversations, there were stories told, and that's how we kept legacy going. So with my grandmother, we would venture into the garden where we would pick greens, beans, tomatoes, to potatoes, you name it. Y'all know that song, right? But it's also where I learned how to cook. Fast forward, I worked at my Aunt Sylvia's restaurant in Harlem. They're going on 63 years. You guys who know it know it's a legacy. And one day I met Gracie Mansion representing Sylvia's. And they're honoring Robert De Niro. And all these restaurateurs, big restaurateurs are there, and they're talking about what they're going to bring. Well, when they got to me, I said that we were going to bring fried chicken and collard greens. This guy who looked just like Pavarotti said to me, why don't you bring sweet potato pie? So I'm like 20-something. And so I sassed him. Yes, I sure did. I'm like, why is Pavarotti asking me this question? I said, why don't you bring sweet potato pie? Everybody laughed. Well, that guy just happened not to be Pavarotti, but to be Drew Nearparent. Drew Nearparent, when Robert De Niro wanted to open the first Nobu, Tribeca Grill, he is one of the premier restaurateurs in the country. And here I am sassing him at 20-something years old. Long story short, Drew and Robert De Niro came looking for me one day at Sylvia's. And they said, have you ever thought about opening your own restaurant? I said, I've thought about it, but how do we make this happen? Long story short, we started working on a project. I worked with them for 2.5 years. They wanted to open up a place in the theater district downtown. Well, for me, I wanted to open up Minton's Playhouse. So Minton's Playhouse was opened in 1939, the birthplace of the music known as bebop. The house band used to be Dizzy Gillespie, Thelonious Monk, Charlie Parker. And for me, it was like, I have an amazing opportunity. If not me, who? And if not now, when? We were ahead of our time. Worked on the project for 2 years. Didn't happen. I was devastated because it was very public. This girl from Harlem put together a dream team, worked on this. But what I didn't know was that I was being prepared for something greater. And it does get greater, better. It does get greater later. So sometimes we look at life and we say, oh, we failed. This didn't happen. No, just know that you are being prepared for something later. So 114th Street in Harlem was one of the most notorious drug blocks. I'm walking down the street and I said, I would always complain about it because there was a school in the middle of the block. And it bothered me that kids had to witness drug deals taking place, people using, and then we expected them to go to school and learn. I'm on a flight. The flight attendant says, in case of an emergency, put on your mask first. And I said, Melba, you're complaining about the problem, but what are you doing? From vision to reality. Well, growing up, I always saved money under my mattress every Friday. So I said, let me see how much money I have saved under my mattress. Well, I started counting and counting, and 2 weeks later, I had amassed what I would call a lottery hit. It was $312,000. With a 4-year-old son and going through a divorce, I said, Melba, you better bet on you. And that's what I did. There was a space that said for rent right on the corner of 114th Street where the school was. I called the number. Robert Reach answered the phone. And he said, oh, we have a lease out. I said, Mr. Reach, is the lease signed? He said, no. I said, well, my grandmama told me a deal's not a deal until the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. He said, you know what, I like you. Can you come in tomorrow? Totally booked tomorrow. I had nothing to do tomorrow. I said, but I can come today. And the rest, as they say, is herstory. Melba's was born, and it was born to show people that come from the Harlems of the world that if I can, you can too. That if I can, so can you. Well, my friends, that was 21 years ago. I'm now legal. Not only are we legal, there are 4 other Melbas opening up the 5th one. There's one in Grand Central Terminal that's been there for a year and a half. There's one in the Prudential Center that's 3 years old. There's one in Central Park that's 5 years old, and opening up the 5th one in Newark. And I say that to say, anything that you want to do, you can do. And as Antoinette said, there are definitely going to be turbulences. But don't look at those things as hindrances. Just like when Drew and Bob and I were going to open up a place. No, those were stepping stones. It's all about our point of view. Now, for me, the steps are the power of manifestation. Even though people told me who I was, I knew who I wanted to be. So you have to first understand the power of manifesting who you are. Words are very powerful. I would say, I'm going to own a restaurant. I'm going to be a chef. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But I would also write it down. The power of pen to paper. Now, I know a lot of you think that writing means typing it on your cell phone. There's something that happens in the brain when you physically take a piece of paper and write something down. Your mind believes this, and your mind believes that you can do this. And then your mind starts to do weird things like making things happen for you and reminding you of what to do. I want you to practice that. I'm not telling you something that someone told me. I'm telling you something that I've lived and that I continue to live. You see, on the back of my bedroom door is a big post-it. It's about 2 feet tall. On that, it has my dog food. On that, it has Melba's 550. On that, it has my television show. The power of manifestation, the power of you is possible, okay? And as Carol said, yes, one of my dreams, one of the things that I manifested was to do a TV show. And who was going to produce it? I can show you the paper. It says Oprah. Who's producing my show? Oprah. My brothers and sisters, this is not reserved just for me. This is reserved for we. Anything that you want to do, you can do. I stand here as a living testament to that. So now let me just tell you, you're going to have some hard times. Okay? Let your mess be your message. And you can't spell testimony without spelling test. I'm going to leave you with this. I want everybody to stand up on your feet for me right now. Stand up on your feet for we. This is one of my favorite quotes, and it's by the one and only Harriet Tubman. Turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, oh neighbor, every dream begins with a dreamer. You have within the power, the courage, and the will to reach for the stars and change the world. It is not impossible. It is I'm possible. Now, Carol, I want you to pass that offering plate right now. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for having me.